Welcome to Module 4. This is Human-Centered Design. So let's take a look at our objectives this week. We're going to talk about using empathy-based research methods to identify learner needs in a specific context. Number 2, we're going to apply the human-centered design process to create an instructional solution. And number 3, reflect on the human impact of your instructional design decisions. So what is human-centered design? A lot of people call this HCD. Human-centered design is all about keeping learners at the center of the design process. It's not just about creating content, it's about understanding real problems from the learner's perspective and creating relevant, respectful solutions. We're talking about being inclusive and grounded in user feedback. This is a video that I would like for you to pause and watch. Time to take empathy education in secondary schools seriously. And even though this is about secondary schools, this can be applied to any age group, but it's important to understand empathy in education. So take a minute to watch this video and process what he's talking about as far as empathy in education. Use empathy-based research methods. Empathy-based research means listening deeply. We use tools like empathy interviews or student shadowing to discover what students truly experience. These methods help uncover invisible challenges and opportunities for meaningful learning design. So, what are the techniques? Interviews, observations, empathy maps, surveys. What's the purpose? We're trying to understand our learners. We're trying to understand their motivations. Think back to our Gen Z and our Gen Alpha. What are their barriers? What are their preferences? And we're trying to focus. What is the engagement, the accessibility, the relationships, the learning environment? We're trying to understand our students better. So these are a few sample empathy research questions. Empathy interviews use open-ended questions to explore learners' experiences. These aren't just data points, they're stories that can inform design decisions rooted in actual needs. So these are just some sample questions that you can use, but it helps you to understand. So what helps you feel excited or motivated to learn? What do you do when you feel stuck or frustrated during class? What tools or resources do you find most helpful, and how do you prefer to show what you've learned? These are great ways to get into the minds of our students and understand them better. Then applying the human-centered design process. So the human-centered design process follows 5 key phases. After we understand the learner experience, we define the problem, brainstorm solutions, build a prototype, and test it with real users. It's all about iteration and refinement. Okay, so understanding how to create those solutions for your students. Applying the human-centered design process to your instructional design. When you apply this design, you should reflect what you've learned from your students. That could mean incorporating tools that support diverse expression or designing lessons that reflect students' culture and identities. And then a couple of examples. You could use FigJam, Canva, Seesaw. These are just a few examples that you could use. Reflection. Reflection is critical. After implementation, take time to think about the human impact. Did the design genuinely improve learning? Was it inclusive? And how can you do better next time, right? So questions to consider. Whose voice was included in your design? Who might still be left out? How did your choices affect equity, access, and student dignity? This is a video, just a short little video, but I love it because this is the quote from the very end of this video. It's about finding the music and cranking up the volume. So take a minute to watch this. This is very short, and just process that.
Why human-centered?
And then human-centered design in action. So this is a case study for elementary. And the case study is supporting reading engagement in elementary. This example comes from a fourth grade classroom where students weren't connecting with independent reading time. By listening carefully during empathy interviews, the teacher discovered that students felt disconnected from the available books. Instead of assuming a solution, the teacher partnered with the school librarian and students to co-create a new system, one where students had a voice in book selection. The solution didn't require new technology or funding. It simply centered students in the design process. What was the result? Students felt seen and reading engagement grew. So this is just an example for you to look at, right? And to think about times in your classroom where you can use this process to make things better. So it's your turn. You are going to create an empathy interview to better understand students' learning needs, preferences, experiences. Questions should be created with these ideas in mind: engagement and motivation, learning strategies and tools, barriers and access, support and relationships. Using the data gathered from your empathy interview, apply the human-centered design process to create an instructional solution. And I've given you an exemplar here to take a look at. And I put data in quotation marks because, again, this is summer, so I know you don't have any students, so you're going to have to create an empathy interview with your pretend students. And you might even have a student in mind that you would like to use for this because you know your students well, and you can create that empathy interview based on some students you've had in the past. So this week you have 3 PDFs to read: integrating AI into design ideation, assessing ChatGPT's role in human-centered design education. The second one is the power of social emotional learning, SEL, which is huge in schools, transforming schools into happy schools. And the third one is empathy the key to effective teaching? A systematic review of its association with teacher-student interactions and student outcomes. Again, you'll have your discussion questions and then the activity, which is the empathy interview we just talked about, and then using that data to apply the process to an instructional solution. And for your portfolio, I want you to include your empathy interview, your instructional solution that you have used for the human-centered design, and then how did empathy shape your instructional decisions? So I'd like for you to reflect on that. And as always, I am available if you have questions or need